parachute is tasteless. They likely to run their mouth, but when they see you face to face, they quick with the shape shift. Up through the night, work the grave shift. Batted from the cradle to the grave, bitch. Big mad how they face tense. Look both ways for you catch fade. I'm a nice guy on the inside, still I'm not somebody to be played with. Keep it all the way 1,000. I don't remember how the ground feels. I left the city, I've been browsing, treading water that they drowned in. My head on the swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings. They keep it all the way 1,000. I don't remember how the ground feels. I left the city, I've been browsing, treading water that they drowned in. My head on the swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings. Can't stop, won't stop, till I tour the world when the glow track. Then a nigga dope at the stove top. Type of shit they hide in a tube sock. I done skip town on a new block, but I'm still around, nigga, just not. Better hold it down with a group drop where I kick down for the crowd, a balloon pop. Bet they come around for my moolah. Better run them out of town for they hoopla. Queen, she a hun like Mulan. Everything the hoes what they were, but they just not. They be right up in your face with the fake stop. They be thinking it's a game, but it's just not. They be thinking we the same, but they subpar. You from drug through the mud when the flood stop, pull up. Hey, I feel amazing. Pyramid scheme, how I play the angle. I send it to your girl, but I make a facelift. This is your brain on the matrix. I be hella wild, but you can't tame me. Got the keys to the cradle with no cable. Smelling like basil. Yeah, I got the flavor. I ain't got no patience. Kept it with a savor. I be on their nerve, but that shit painful. Looking sour when I serve, how that shit tasted. Show a conversation. Giving waves till they make shit the flotation. It's outrageous. Righteous with the sound, but a finger razor to the whole nation. Yelling out fuck 12 till they throw me in the cell. But a nigga make bail for the young and rebellious generation. Keep it all the way 1,000. I don't remember how the ground feels. I left the city, I've been browsing, treading water that they drowned in. My head on the swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings. They keep it all the way 1,000. I don't remember how the ground feels. I left the city, I've been browsing, treading water that they drowned in. My head on the swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Yo. Yeah, gotta fix that. Why isn't New World showing up for OBS? Oh, that would be why. Decided to turn itself into a little box. Okay, time to go over the dev stream once more. Make it nice and big.
Pick up from where we left off.
Yep. All right, so in this next segment, we will be covering bugs, bots, etc., etc. And I feel like this is the update that they should have pushed a lot sooner. Shit. Oh, there it is. This is the update that definitely should have been way sooner rather than later. Them pushing off everything that was important to February is it's pretty upsetting for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean to do that. Oh, actually, we already did that. It's balance and tuning is the part we're on. We already covered bugs and bots. That's right. That was part 2.
Yeah, that was a bit
balance.
early.
So balance and tuning. This is the part where I disagree with almost everything because I don't believe you should balance around casuals. I feel like you should be balancing around top, like 1% or whatever, right? And because you're gonna see at the higher skill level, a lot of people are gonna be using everything to the highest optimizations that they could, and you're gonna find that a lot of the cookie cutter shit falls short too. That's another thing that people don't understand. It's like cookie cutter is good up until the higher elo where people don't fall for stupid shit, right? So if you're doing like arenas, a lot of this copy pasta shit isn't gonna work. I don't believe you should be balancing around the fucking casuals. Like, I've never felt that way. And so they're going to be talking about how some of the weapons that they nerfed were overly nerfed and yada, yada, yada. Honestly, until you fix the fundamentals of the game, you can't really balance shit appropriately. Like, I'm going to preach this until the end of time. Skills need fucking momentum on movement. Like, they need it. Otherwise, melee will never hit range. So here we go. Let's watch people that don't know anything about fucking video games tell us how they're gonna balance shit. There's no way these fucking people.
All right, so for this next segment, we're going to be talking about kind of our February release, how we're focusing on balancing the game a little bit more. We are joined by Dave Hall, who is the player experience lead. So, Dave, kind of at a high level, how do you determine whether a weapon might be overpowered?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a lot of different tools that we use on this. We look at the forums. We obviously have our internal play tests. We have our expert players. We also look at how the wars and outpost rush modes are going and what weapons are being used. For instance, in a war, if 40 out of the 50 people are using an ice gauntlet, there's probably a reason they're trying to use the ice.
So yeah, that's true, but those are blatant factors, right? If you see everyone using ice gauntlet or everyone using fucking bow and musket in OPR, there might be something wrong with it, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be desynchronization issues, right? Everyone's using bows and muskets. It's because melee desync is a fucking thing. So if that's fixed, would you see a lot more people probably trying out like Great Axe, fucking Hatchet, like the hitbox on Hatchet? It's absolutely abysmal, right? It doesn't exist. So sitting there saying, "Oh, everyone's using this," so it might be OP. Sometimes that's true, but addressing other weapons sometimes fixes that.
Right.
So we need to kind of look into that and what is being done to, what are they doing to cause this OP-ness, as we like to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think
Ice Spike hitting 4 times and critting all 4, dealing fucking 16k damage.
Experience that's happening to the other players feel bad, right? Like, is what this Ice Gauntlet doing to the other team something they can't counteract? Is it something they don't like to play against? Is it making the game experience worse? And do they feel bad that they're not using that weapon?
Mm-hmm.
And do they want to switch now to go to that weapon? And those are things that really start to hone us in on, like, hey, this might be something wrong with this weapon, and let's take a closer look.
And on the reverse side, right, we're talking about overpowered weapons. There's players who are talking about the Fire Staff and maybe the Ice Gauntlet being underpowered. Do you agree, or?
I think they're in a really close place. There was some pretty significant changes to them recently, and I know those weren't super well received, but they're a lot closer to the other weapons than they used to be. We are looking at a few things in the very near future that are going to amp them up just a little more. In particular for the fire staff, we're looking at the fire mage side of the tree to do some little bit buffs in there. And the
So let's go into the fire staff mage tree. Oh, let me pay my property tax. So, Pillar of Fire, Meteor Shower, and Fireball. Pretty sure Pillar of Fire and Fireball are the most used skills in Fire Staff. Why you need to buff them, I have no fucking clue. What's the reasoning? What's the justification? These don't need to be buffed. Incinerate's insane in melee range. Flamethrower's insane. And Burnout's always used, right? Burnout's strong.
Yeah.
Fire Staff's fucking fine. I want to know what are they going to touch up Meteor Shower? I think if they were to touch up Meteor Shower, I'd be fine with that. But if they touch fucking Pillar of Fire and Fireball, no. In my opinion, Pillar of Fire should not be. Pillar of Fire right now is easier to hit than Arrow Shower, right? But those two skills do the exact same shit, right? I don't think this needs to be touched. It's on scale with other fucking abilities in the game. Fireball's insane. So this doesn't need to be touched. Are they going to touch up passives? Like, what kind of passives do we have here? Heavy attack restores mana. Heavy attack reduces cooldowns. While holding fire staff above 50% mana, gaining power. That's fucking insane. Light attacks inflict burning on foes after not taking damage for the last 3 seconds. Deal 5% more damage. That's fucking clear casting is insane. Yeah. Fire staff abilities gain an extra 10% chance to crit. Heavy attacks no longer consume mana. And while holding fire staff, your critical strike damage is increased by 15%. And then of course, the rune, which increases fucking damage by 25% while standing in the rune. Fire Mage is fucking insane. Why does this need to be touched up? Is it just because a lot of people play Fire Staff and complain about it? I don't think that's proper line and reasoning of buffing Fire Staff. Fire Staff's perfectly fine right now. They don't need to be touched. I guess you can buff up Meteor Shower a little bit, but besides that, don't fucking touch it. That makes no sense.
The Ice Gauntlet, we're making sure to add a little more CC in because I think we accidentally nerfed a little too far in their CC abilities.
Right.
If you buff up CC on Ice Gauntlet, it would have to be in ways in forms that don't take us back to where the fuck we were. Right? The deep freeze is very oppressive. It's very fucking oppressive. I think giving them a little bit more slow would be fine, but you also have to realize that this weapon should not be able to stand alone and take on any weapon. When they're balancing shit, you gotta realize, like, a lot of individuals, such as like casual players, they may lean into one thing and not utilize their second weapon. But there's two weapons that you're using at all times, right? So, for example, if I'm running like Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, right? If I'm using these two, and I'm sitting there and I'm throwing down fucking AoEs, and I'm putting up my walls, and you can't get close, and then I'm switching over to Fire Staff, and I'm just burning you to all hell, And then when you finally do close the gap, I use Burnout, and then I switch back to Ice Gauntlet, and now I'm fucking slowing you all day again. It's not enjoyable. It's a toxic fucking game experience. So no, I don't think Ice Gauntlet needs to be touched either. A lot of weapons are actually in a really good place right now. You need to fix the desync and then increase hatchet fucking hit detection. And people are calling out for buffs on Sword and Shield, but I mean, I use Sword and Shield as a utility. So I don't think any weapons really need a buff. I say fix hatchet so it's more likely to hit targets, fix the desync, and then tone down musket. Right? Because too many people are fucking spamming musket and being cringy. Like, if there's only 2 to 3 musket players, musket doesn't feel oppressive. When you have like 7 muskets on the enemy team, it's fucking annoying and toxic.
Yeah.
Because you literally have to close that gap. And the only thing that challenges musket is musket. Right? Honestly, add like Bramble Vest kind of status to fucking Sword and Shield, where if I block, like, say, like, if I block a target's fucking attacks, they take damage back to punish muskets for just sitting in the back and spamming it. Right? Call it deflection or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But something needs to check. Something really needs to check the hit scan, sit in the back status of musket.
Now, when we're going to use the PTR for a lot of this, right? Like, hopefully these things will be discovered on internal playtests, through the QA team and what have you. But, when something a big change goes to the PTR, we'll be looking for player feedback, about overpowered or underpowered weapons. How do you take that feedback and ingest it, to make changes?
Yeah, we have to do it very quickly, first of all. And so we take a lot of the feedback, and we actually sit in all-day meetings, all the combat designers, and we just sit around and we talk about everything in there, and we rise everything up to the top that we think is the highest priority. We look at the feasibility of the change. How long do we think it will take? Is it an easy change? Is it just a data change? Or is it a complete rework of the ability? Those obviously will affect how we're going to approach the issues that people are seeing.
Mm-hmm. So this could be for you, Scott. When you
I've seen a lot of people take that phrasing out of context too. The rework of an ability. For example, say, oh my god, this fucking. Are you still playing? Yes. Matter of fact, I am. When they say rework an ability, it doesn't mean that you're getting a brand new ability. Right? Reworking the ability could just mean the overall feeling and purpose of that ability changes.
Yeah.
For example, if Ice Wall no longer blocked but gave a heavy slow, right? And the heavy slow lasted for a bit. That's a rework of the ability. It's no longer oppressing people to not be able to push forward. Meanwhile, also providing some form of CC, but it's not as strong of a CC. Or, like, there's so many ways you can modify the feeling of a skill to make it just a lot different. For example, like Execute, right? I use Execute as a heavy hitter right now. But they could change the overall layout to where they reduce Execute's cooldown to the point where it's a little bit more spammy. And so it's more of a targeted fucking high damage single target focus. You know what I mean? So if they drop the cooldown, I would be using that a lot more frequently on a single target. That wouldn't matter to me, personally for this build. It's CC someone and then smack them and then tank up. CC them, smack them, tank up. That's all I do with this build. But essentially, that's what they're talking about when reworking an ability, right? Changing the design of an ability. It's just the purpose. They could, however, just go, you know what, we're gonna scrap this whole ability and we're gonna give them something else. But I think with the amount of problems that they have, redesigning a whole skill is kind of too far ahead of them.
You decide to implement like a new perk instead of balancing, or it could be for anybody. When you implement a new perk instead of balancing the old ones, is there a science or a method to that?
I think part of it is just our team capacity and who's working on different high priority things. You know, if there's a lot of high priority bugs, then we might have more or less engineering support on a particular thing, and it might be more designers able to address things. So part of it comes down to you know, who's able to do the work in sort of the time frame we need. In some cases, it means that we already have the tech and we can make new changes or even adjust existing things depending on a case-by-case basis. But that's probably the biggest thing, sort of like what resources can we commit to fixing a particular thing.
Yeah, I think that instead of saying like, why did we focus on creating new ones versus this? It's not a versus. These things happen at the same time.
Right.
And so there is a resource part of this, which is if we don't have the resource that is supposed to be working on the new content, if they're needed on fixing old ones, that's where we're going to put them. We're going to put them on the fixing. But most of the time we can work on both of these things at the same time. It's just fixes aren't always easy.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. Sometimes you can work on new content and fix the old ones.
Yeah.
But when your game doesn't work, when people are complaining about desynchronizations, when people are complaining about the hit detection, when people are complaining about weapon swapping, fuck your new content.
Yep.
Right? Have it on the table and have it ready, like, to brain scheme up, but you should be allocating resources of why people are quitting, not what you're going to add to the game. Mutators didn't add anything to the fucking game. There's no new level of excitement, right? It doesn't do anything. So when people are sitting there telling you, oh, we want new content, we want this, we want this, we want that, realize, look at your statistics. Why do people quit? Right? Against all odds, many people quit because of that. The crouch healing, a lot of people quit because of that. The fucking invulnerability window mode, a lot of people quit because of that. People will quit over exploits and bugs and desynchronizations and all this shit before they will ever quit from not having new content. You want proof? Look at World of Warcraft. Argue that point. WoW has the biggest fucking content droughts I've seen in any game. Terra has more content being pushed out than fucking WoW. It's fucking baffling. So at the end of the day, fuck your new content. It's not doing anything for you. It's not going to cause returning players. Bumping the GS and expertise isn't going to cause players to stay. What's going to cause players to stay is you taking care of the actual fucking game. Allocate the appropriate resources to fixing your game. That way we don't have people quitting. I'm tired of this shit. Look at the trend. Where are we at? Okay. In October, average player count, 410,000. November, average player count, 155,000. December, 83,000. You're losing 50% every fucking 30 days.
I didn't even know the numbers were that high.
They were, but we lost so goddamn much. And now we're settled around like 79,000 right now. We can't afford to lose another 50 fucking %, dude.
There will only be one server left. That's gonna be it.
What's the fucking point, man? We're losing too many fucking players. That's the main issue. We lose so many fucking players. Let's go look at server health and stability. New world server status. There's this one I like to use. This one. God damn, dude. You don't have a single fucking server that's full. The most populated server right now is at 1,581, followed up by 1,558. These are all EU Central. And then after that, it starts dropping down to 1,200, 1,100, so on and so forth. US East, Eden, 1,145. That's the most popular server on US East, is Eden. Valhalla's followed up by 1065, and then everything after that is sub fucking 1K.
Mm-hmm.
And it drops quick. It drops really fucking quick. It funnels down really fucking fast. How about US West? What's US West like? US West, El Dorado, the most populated server on US West, 786.
That's no one. Absolutely no players.
It may not be prime time. I'll put it into factor. Yes, it may not be prime time. It's fucking 12 o'clock on a fucking on a Monday, right? Because a lot of kids are at school and shit like that. But your game is fucking dying.
It's not dying. It is dead.
Yeah, the fucking man, the horse is on the ground dead and you're just kicking it. How do you fix that? It's easy. Fix your fucking game. Don't do radical changes. Fucking Scott needs to man the fuck up. Because he doesn't know how to do his job. Everything falls from the top down. When I go into a store and I see a waiter or waitress that's a complete fucking asshole, I'm not going to blame the waitress or the waiter. I'm going to blame the management. If I go to a company and I buy, say, a chair, and then the chair fucking breaks within 2 seconds, I'm not mad at the person who built it. I'm mad at whoever has the authority to make those changes on it. Right? If you're an executive, if you're top of the management totem pole, it's your responsibility that everyone underneath you provides good quality shit. Is New World good quality shit? It can be. I want New World to be successful. This is the thing that I banked on and I stream fucking hours upon hours of. But it's not, the performance isn't there. With desynchronization issues and all these other issues, I don't think we should be prioritizing new content. Mutators, that's a fucking thing.
And so it's going to seem like we're focusing on new content or new perks versus doing bug fixes, but we're not. These things are happening at the same time. It's just the level at which we can get them complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, except you're allocating resources to new content. So it's like spitting in our face that you push off bugs, bots, and exploits to February, not to January. Right? If your house is on fire, you can't say, I'm going to put water on it next week.
Yeah.
How does that make fucking sense? Right.
Yep.
You don't go, all right, so we'll have Joe, Jim, and Bob put water on it. Terry, Chris, and Charles I want you thinking about what we should do with the living room. Like how we should support it in order to get people out. No, I'm thinking about like should we put couches, like what kind of couches should we have? Your house is on fucking fire, dumbass. The fuck are you thinking? I get it, like when you have so here's the counter argument, right? I'm gonna address this before fucking anyone could ever say anything about it. The counter argument is this. If you have, say, 100 people, you can't have 100 people on the same bug, right? On the same issue. For example, you can't just, on some issues, you can't just throw more people at it. And so the excess amount of people could be doing other things. But your guys are literally telling you we don't have the manpower to address the fucking issues. Isn't that what the guy just said earlier? Oh, we don't have enough people to kind of identify these issues and work on these changes and do this and that. The guy literally just said that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't put a single person on anything else other than fixing your fucking game. I'm not even talking about weapon balancing. Fuck weapon balancing. Fix your fucking game. Fix the fucking netcode. So we don't have desynchronizations. So we don't have these random... Listen, you know how many times my shield bash goes through something and my leaping strike, I go literally... Like, my balls are in their face and I don't fucking hit them? The rubber banding is too fucking toxic. The ghosting is way too fucking toxic. Your netcode, number one priority. Fix the desync shit immediately. Look at the reasons why people are quitting, and that's where you should put your manpower. Stop people from fucking quitting. Stop people from fucking leaving. Fuck the new shit. Focus on why people are leaving. If there's no fucking content, people will just farm gold and they'll do PvP. They will fill in that time. Not everyone's at 590 GS and just fucking farming everything out. I'm telling you, there's only a small percentage of players that are actually at that point. It's a very minuscule amount of people. If you don't believe me, go look up at Steam achievements and look up how many people have achieved the level 60. Now, remind yourself, a large portion of those are actually fucking bots. Because the casual player is still not level 60. In fact, I don't even think we have any casual players left. There's probably a lot of like MMORPG addicts that turn casual for this game and are focusing on other games.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you need to look at your game and say, why are fucking people leaving? If I own a restaurant and I'm serving burgers and fries and people are not coming back after they had my burgers and fries, something's fucking wrong. Was my lobby messy? Were my staff assholes? Did the food suck dick? We lost over 90% of our player base within 3 months. Everyone knows we would have lost people. You know, it's fine to go from, say if we were at the 900K. If 900K dropped down to like even 300K, that's a lot. You know, that's 2/3 of our player pot. But people would have been fine with that because populations on the servers would still be pretty massive. You know, it's fine. It means we can condense servers and we can use the resources from the servers that we're no longer using on the servers we do have. Right? That would have been fine. We had almost 1 million players. Actually, we did. Right? The average was based on bottlenecks of, like, they sold over 1 million copies before the fucking bots became a huge thing.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, they couldn't all get on at the same time just because there wasn't enough space. So if we had, I'm going to say that the peak was the absolute maximum amount of players we had, but we did have more than that.
Mm-hmm.
We lost all that and we're now down to like 86,000. Someone committed genocide on your fucking game. That's
People would have
fucking.
stayed.
I would have been fired at any job. Any executive would tell you that's not a success. That's a mass failure.
That's what changes.
Is the fucking shit bug now? Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, the video doesn't show. It's just black.
I might have to relaunch the not the stream or anything. I might have to refresh the page. We'll see. We'll see. Let me cancel the window and reopen it. So we'll do like this, and then we'll go to here. Bam. Fix, I'm a guru. All right. But yeah, your priorities is what kills your company. And if any one of your staff members said, hey, listen, we should probably have focused on this, and then after you focus on those issues and you see the population finally steady out, or God forbid begin to rise, that's the person you need to put in charge.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll see people, in the forums or on Reddit or, what have you, saying like, why not just buff all of the weapons until they're the same level?
Yeah, because filthy fucking casuals want to be able to kill anyone regardless of anything. No.
Instead of nerfing particular ones.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with our weapons, we do want them all to be around the same level, obviously. And for a lot of our updates, we have been buffing unused abilities or upgrades that aren't getting usage. But some of the overpowered ones, we just had to bring back down into a little bit of a tighter control, because otherwise it just kind of...
I want to add to the fact that a lot of skills in the game have been OP and no one fucking realized it. Right? Ice Spike has always done what it does. It's just no one ever did it.
Yeah.
Right? All it takes is one person to discover it and go, oh shit, this is broken. And now everyone's using it. Right? That's what happens. Because everyone follows cookie cutters because people are sheep. Right? I guarantee you my execute is going to get a nerf. Even though no one uses it. Once execute picks up trend, it's going to be stupid.
Kind of escalates to a point where at some point none of the enemies will be tough for you anymore, right? Like they're just
And
like...
who wants that?
Yeah, you want a little bit of
wants
challenge.
none of the enemies being tough?
You want challenge in the game.
Yeah.
And I think, so we want to try to keep it in a bracketed place, and I think with anything that's not being used, we're always looking at how can we make them better for the player. We want diversity in our builds. We don't want everybody using the same tree. We don't want everybody using the same 3 abilities. So we want to make sure that's occurring for all our weapons.
And it sounds
A lot of the reason why everyone uses the same 3 abilities is because, like I said, people are cheap.
Yeah.
Right? If you're playing New World, obviously there's going to be some skills that are just blatantly better than others. Right? Would you ever pick reverse stab on Sword and Shield versus Shield Bash? Fuck no. Shield Bash, even though its hit detection is fucking garbage, so is reverse stab. Meanwhile, Shield Bash stuns a target, and reverse stab removes 1 debuff? Who the fuck gives a fuck about 1 debuff? That's just... no playability in that. So, the only thing I do like about reverse stab, I will give this to reverse stab. It does reduce cooldowns by quite a bit. But in the grand scheme of things, cookie cutter builds will always exist, just like on WoW. Like I'm pretty sure, babe, even after I quit WoW, you were playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was
Yeah.
still the top tier meta specs for raids and shit like that, right?
Of course, there always will be.
Yeah, and it's just how things are.
Mm-hmm.
But you're gonna find individuals that go against the grain that really push things into a new light, and then people are gonna start following that trend, and that's gonna be the new cookie cutter. That's how shit fads come into play on MMORPGs. If you want diversity in your game, it's not buffing and nerfing every single weapon, right? First, make sure your game is functioning properly. 2, find out why people aren't using a skill, right? For example, people are probably not using execute because the animation is too fucking long, right? I'm telling you because I use execute. I love the fucking skill. It's so fucking sexy, right? There's nothing more sexy than fucking using execute. And you see the fucking overhead big ass fucking swing, and then you deal like anywhere between like 5 to fucking 10k damage, right? Depending on your setup.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking hot. That's sexy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so slow, right? And unless the target's not moving, getting it off is really difficult. So at the end of the day, like that would be a huge deterrent for a lot of people, and that's why people pick Maelstrom over it. Because Maelstrom does a lot of damage too, and it pulls targets in, and the response is instant from it. So in comparison, it makes execute look small, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think Maelstrom is better for group combat. I could be wrong, because I've had situations where I've executed like a group of 3 people and killed all 3.
Sounds like this is an ever evolving process where we collect feedback from the players, test, iterate. That it's going to continue to happen. It's not just like one thing's going to end it all.
Absolutely. We're going to be doing this for the entirety of the project. And I think one important thing to remember is that this is the beginning of the lifespan. And in the beginning, there are a lot of little shifts that kind of need to happen. This is the first time we've had so many people playing
Growing
this.
pains,
A little bit of growing there. And so there's been some larger changes than we
I think what he means by that is this is the first fucking game that we had that had some levels of success, because they literally had 2 failed projects that never made release, and the one that did release they recalled because it had no players on it.
I'm honestly saying that I'm excited is the wrong words to use, but I'm excited to see how Lost Ark actually does, because that's another Amazon title, and especially after how New World is flopping so hard.
That's the thing.
That
Lost
reputation is
Ark
gonna
could be losing the trust though. He says an Amazon title. Is it by Amazon Game Studios?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah. Smilegate. Oh, publishers. No. Amazon Game Studio is just a publisher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just remember seeing it on the end screen.
Smilegate, Tripod Studio, and Smilegate RPG are the developers for it.
Yeah, but the shame is Amazon Game Studios' reputation is gonna carry on to Lost Ark, because that's what people see. They see the freaking Amazon Games logo. They don't see the poor smile people. Like, we just made a game.
Isn't Lost Ark? Yeah, Lost Ark is like a newer Diablo 2. I think Lost Ark has potential. I wouldn't mind playing Lost Ark.
Yeah.
But do I think it's going to beat New World in the long term? Probably not if they get their shit together on New World. I think if New World doesn't kill itself, it can do really well.
Yeah.
Right. That's just my opinion on it. And you're right, like having Amazon Game Studio as a publisher or having that name on Lost Ark might hurt Lost Ark.
we would like to know.
Because they did lose a lot of fucking loyalty with their consumers. Yeah. It's really fucking bad. It's so frustrating.
Normally do, but they had to be done, and so I think we're getting to a place where the changes will be a little more subtle,
right,
and a little easier for people to understand.
And in terms of growing pains, I know that some people are complaining about bots in Outpost Rush. Scott, do you have any info on that?
Yeah, so that's definitely a concern. Outpost Rush is like one of the most engaging like level 60 experiences that players can engage in. And so when there's a bot or like an AFK player or someone just taking up a slot to try and grind rewards, that really hurts one side or the other, whichever side is, they're on. And so we're doing a lot of different things in that regard. We're doing analytics and telemetry to try and identify players. We shortened the AFK thresholds for Outpost Rush because that's supposed to be like an active.
Yeah.
How about removing points for fucking resources that are being pumped into doors? I mean, that would kind of fix a lot of issues.
Type of experience. We're also changing the scoring system a little bit. This is announced in the December patch notes, but we're going to make it so that the assist kill contribution works a little bit differently than it does in the open world. In the open world, you want to favor the player, and if someone's in your group and you kill something, you want them to still get experience and loot and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But in Outpost Rush, we sort of put you into these groups during the game mode, and then it didn't really jive with like our vision for that mode, that you'd be off to one side not engaging in PvP, and then
I do not feel that anyone should get credit that hasn't participated in the kill.
No.
Even if you're in my group and I'm doing weapon mastery EXP farming, if you show up and you're not hitting the targets, right? Or if you're not healing, if you're not supporting, if you're not doing anything, you shouldn't be calculated in that. Right? The reason why they have these calculations to where if you're in the group, is it like you're getting the shit, is because it's easier to do that, right? Instead of having all these flags, right? In my opinion, if you throw a heal on me, or if I'm healed by you and I kill a target within 30 seconds, or not even 30 seconds, like in the last fucking 10 seconds, you should get credit, right? You should get the assist. If you hit the target, you should get an assist, right? And then the kill credit goes to whoever deals the most damage. Not whoever knocks down, not whoever fucking finalized the kill. I mean whoever did the most damage. Get rid of chaosing.
And you'd be getting all these assists. And that was one of the things that was contributing to the score and allowing these bots to basically do nothing but still get a chest reward. So we're approaching it from a lot of different angles.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. And speaking of patch notes, Katie, I know this is something that comes up a lot in the community when they feel like there's something that has been left out of the patch notes, that it might have been done intentionally. Can you talk a little bit about how the team puts together?
I feel that catching every single little thing may be an issue. I do feel that they do leave some things intentionally off, but I also feel like a lot of it is forgotten, right? They have so much on their fucking plate. It's kind of hard to keep track at times. So I'm not gonna shame them for it unless it was like a skill thing, right? In my opinion, whoever's orchestrating the patch notes, every team that worked on something, right? Dude, have a little fucking pen and paper next to your fucking... Dude, I have 3 fucking notepads next to my fucking computer. Like, how hard is it to have a fucking notepad? Whoever's working on stuff, document your progress and what you've done, right? And then what happens is you have all these papers, you bring it over to the person that's compiling the patch notes, and that way they can just go, okay, these are all the changes. Right?
Yeah.
You consolidate it. Have your fucking intern of each fucking department go, okay, well, excuse me, Mr. Smith, can I get your notepad for the day? Right? And any fucking finalized changes, they would write down and consolidate. And then those consolidations go to the fucking patch notes person to further consolidate so we have proper patch notes. Make it easier on your patch notes person. I'm not going to blame anyone for that except for whoever's organizing the entire thing. But you should give all your software engineers. You know what? In fact, I'd be really surprised if someone that's doing like any coding whatsoever didn't have Notepad on the side, right? We do in software. We have this thing called like commenting, right? So in commenting, I know in C and Java you do that. I just posted it. It's like a double backslash. And what that does is it sections out a location to where you can write comments. But also another thing that a lot of people do is they'll write in a notepad, right? And kind of get their ideas on a paper. So when they go back to do more coding, they're not losing track of what kind of implementations that they're trying to add. So I don't think it would be that hard. It's just organizing shit. And I don't think there's a lot of malicious intent, but I think there are certain things that they may leave out because of how much backlash they would get. I.e., like changes on fucking, I don't know. What are certain things that they left out? I can't even remember some of them. Oh, fucking musket changes, right? The shooting speed, that was left out of the patch notes. Bow changes. That kind of shit. I can see why people would be upset about that, right? And that's a simple thing to write down, and it'd be really easy to put on those patch notes, but for some reason it was forgotten. Even though immediately after the patch went live, they got so much backlash for it.
Other patch notes?
Yeah, sure. So first of all,
I don't think
throw ourselves under the bus a little bit.
I think 99% of the time it's not out of malicious.
Items from the patch notes. But there's a lot of changes. And the difference between what we did in alpha and beta and what we're doing now is we're providing more structure and we're really focusing on how to get the best out of our patch notes and ensure that we haven't missed anything. But it's been a really tough process because, for instance, when we do a monthly release, that first set of changes that we start looking at, there's tens of thousands of them. Right. And sometimes it's difficult to keep track of those. So we're constantly looking for ways to do better with that. But I just want to make it very clear that there's not an instance that we are like, let's just leave that off. Let's not tell the players about this one. That doesn't help us. We want to tell players like what has changed, what's new in the build, what's different, because we want you to go in and give us feedback. That's a critical piece of our development cycle, is getting player feedback. And if there's something that we want to call your attention to, we're going to do it. And unfortunately, we've had some mistakes.
What?
Look in chat, baby.
Hey, what's up, Mark? How you doing?
In the past, for sure.
And all the changes that go into our game, like there's a variety of them, like art changes, there's tweaks of different numbers and variables. Then there's like more systemic like code changes and changes to systems. And so even for one particular player facing change, like to modify like a fast travel system or something, there might be 6 different check-ins that all change one thing, or there might be like one change that actually modifies like 12 things.
I'm doing pretty good.
So translating
just ripping into the dev stream.
The changes that the team members are making into like a bullet point list of like, this is what the player will see, can be challenging. And then
I agree. So one of the big issues is because coding isn't perfectly linear. Sometimes small changes to certain things will do drastic things to a lot of. When did they post that? The dev stream was on it's December 17th. It's listed on the bottom right around here. I'll highlight it. So this was the December 17th dev update. We're in January. And pretty much what the stream was about is being very clear to their community. I think it's a good thing that they did it, but the problem is because even though you're presenting what your feelings and your thoughts are of how you're going to progress, say, New World, the main issue is the priorities that they have set and what we're seeing now later down the line. We see what what the massive changes of December did. We're seeing where they're going with mutations and stuff like that in January. And now it's going to be even further down the line in February, right? When we see the bugs, balances, and stuff like that, we're going to look back on this dev update and go, okay, well, they were talking about this and this is what they delivered us. So did they really deliver something for the community's sake, or did they just kind of screw us?
Mm-hmm.
Also, the way we sometimes rely on like maybe engineers or other people that are very focused on their work, and like, I'm changing this number from, you know, X to Y, but
They don't understand the player
yeah,
impact.
there's a lot of player impact. That might, like, you know, alter the loot rules of every single chest in the game, right?
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of work
Yeah.
that we can do.
Yeah,
to
it's
improve that
not.
workflow.
For example, it's funny because people have better luck during certain patches than others, even though they didn't change things specifically. For example, when they modified the elite chest zones, trophy drops felt worse. And I don't think it's anything that they intentionally did or modified, but it literally feels worse ever since they did the elite chest changes. And I think it was an indirect effect, or it could be placebo, right? It could just be in people's heads where it's like, you know what, actually. But if you remember during the trophy duping situation, there was a lot of trophy mats. And I don't think it was just because, you know, you can't take it to a furnisher to have it done, because a lot of people bought trophies back then just because of how cheap they were. But it's just, I've been trophy farming for quite a while now. You know, that's how I make my money, is through trophies. So it seems a little weird how big of a change there are in certain time periods. Right now, trophy finding is really good. Like, it feels good. But prior to the December update, it felt pretty shaky. So that's one thing. That's one way to look at like an indirect change. So I 100% feel what he's talking about, and it's hard to be very clear about stuff like that, because sometimes there's indirect changes that were not intentional.
It may seem like it's a simple thing, but it is very complex.
Right.
And
Yeah,
my dad always
that's a very
said
fair
that
statement.
complex problems have simple, easy to understand, wrong solutions. And that's where we have definitively landed with the patch notes. But it is something that we're working on and we're trying to do better. We want
Keeping shit simple usually prevents a lot of issues.
to make ourselves like the gold standard
more.
of this, and
Yeah, less
we're
is more.
falling short of that at this time. So it's
You remember how I would preach to you all the time when because you would be getting frustrated, say, like a New World, right? When you're sitting there trying to like DPS and stuff like that. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Let me do the DPS. Just heal, stand back, chill out, do less. Because I tell people all the time, like when I'm teaching people at restaurants or whatever, right? I would tell them, listen, just focus on what you're doing. Don't focus on this other stuff, right? Just handle what you're doing. Because if you're only doing one thing and you're doing less of everything else, all your focus is on that one thing, you'll do better, right? So less is usually more. If you want to see better human performance, if you want to see better and more accurate changes, less is more, right? If you want to see better balancing, do less, right? Do smaller increments of change over time, and you're going to get the results that you want versus doing 17 nerfs on mages, doing 10 nerfs on fucking melees, doing all this crazy shit. That's too much. Slow your fucking roll. And that's one thing that I brought up several times already, where they're working their devs to the bone when they don't need to. You don't need to do that much to the devs when you can play it slow game. Play for the long term. Don't play for the short term. Play for the long term. Do slow increments and more frequently, and you'll see that the game is going to turn out better than what we have now. Because everyone fucking hated the November update. November, September updates. Right? Too many fucking balance and changes. December felt shitty too. A lot of people cried about the December update. Just do less, and you'll get more out of it.
it's a priority for my team in particular.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, right now, January, February is really all about fixing process, the balancing of things in the game, the continued polish, bug fixes, things like that. So it sounds like we have a lot of really like maybe not crazy flashy things happening right now, but like under the hood, really important things.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wish that was true, but they brought out mutators. And they bumped GS. Right? No one wants that. If you look at the forums, no one wants to increase GS. Because most players aren't even at that point. What he said, I wish it was true. That's exactly what people want. Be under the hood and work on the overall functioning of the game, and people would be really happy. So this is what is known as a false promise. They're disguising what they're doing and the changes and progression timeline that they want into a false promise of what people are complaining about. Right? Listen to what he just said. That's exactly how far are we?
Fixing process.
Okay, this is exactly what people want. And look how he disguises what they're doing as a promise.
Like it's a simple thing.
Pay attention to it.
But
It's a serious
very
fucking thing.
complex.
Right.
And my dad always said that complex problems have simple, easy to understand, wrong solutions. And that's where we have definitively landed with the patch notes. But it is something that we're working on and we're trying to do better. We want to make ourselves like the gold standard of this, and we're falling short of that at this time. So it's a priority for my team in particular.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, right now, January, February is really all about fixing process, the balancing of things in the game.
So what in January is a fixing process or a balancing of the game? There's nothing. There's literally nothing. How are you going to disguise that January is a fixing process of the game? Right? It's a lie. It's a false lie. And that's what I want the community to start understanding is when a game company or any company or any interaction whatsoever, they'll tell you what they're doing and then they'll formulate the words in a way that makes you think that they're doing what you want. Right? Yeah. They're like, okay, well, we hear that you're complaining about all these issues and how things aren't balanced and there's bots and bugs and how you guys want to do this and that. But we already addressed that, like we're gonna have mutations come out. We're on the work in progress for all these bugs and these exploits and yada yada yada. And those will be out in February. So you can see in January and February we're working on that. That's a false fucking promise.
Yeah.
We literally got none of that for January. What bugs or fixes did we get for January? There's literally nothing on the patch notes. So it's a false fucking promise. They could have software engineers in the back line, setting up for February, right? And they could be working on it in February. But I think the overall grand scheme of things, it's a massive false promise. Because there's game breaking issues right now in the game. I'm not gonna say it's against it's not as bad as like against all odds or like the crouch healing or anything like that. But it's pretty unplayable. There's a lot of meme videos on YouTube right now where people are showing the melee problems, right? And then you see range people, they're all like, oh, I never experienced that. Because you're fucking ranged.
Yeah.
Right? If all your melee deciding to not play melee because melee is almost unplayable, that's a huge issue. Mm-hmm. If people are quitting because of desynchronization or because of brutes and OPR or because there's no real PvP besides wars and only a set amount of people can do them because you don't implement a voucher system, you can look up my posts, like all my topics on the forums. My name is the exact same as it is on the forums. You'll literally see that I talk about how, listen, you need a voucher system in order to diversify wars and make it more interesting. None of that. Do you want to take care of that or you want me to do it? You want to give that a shot?
I can give it a shot.
Okay. So anyways, You want diversity in wars. You don't want the same 50 people dominating war after war after war. Yes, I feel that it's 100%. I feel like, if you're doing a lot of work and you're really strong and stuff like that, you deserve to be rewarded. But you can't fucking have that person, those same group of 50, dominating every single location, right? Because what they do is they set up shell companies. This is another issue that hasn't been addressed or anything. Companies are setting up shell companies because on your very first declare, you have a higher rate of getting a successful declare. So any companies with pre-established territories has a lower percentage, and they don't gain as much faction influence as they do for the newer companies. Like, you can take a 15-man squad and push a zone really efficiently if you never claimed a zone before. So, yeah, that's not being addressed. They didn't say anything about that. But we'll ignore that. So let's look at the fundamentals of the game. Stop disguising bullshit.
Continued polish, bug fixes, things like that. So it sounds like we have a lot of really, maybe not crazy flashy things happening right now, but under the hood, in really important things.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this segment, and we will have more coming up next.
New weapons. This is where they talk about Blunderbuss, Great
Sword. Is going to
Sword.
be all about weapons in New World, and both of these gentlemen are heavily involved in how the weapons work, adding new weapons, tweaking the weapons we currently have. So this question would be for you, Dave. What do you think about when you are coming up with a new weapon, or what weapon should be introduced next?
There's a couple things. I think first, we always want to introduce weapons that bring new playstyles to the game, right? So something that really changes up the gameplay.
Like Void Gauntlet, how it's completely overbearing and has absolute insane amount of zoning control.
Like with the Void Gauntlet, our most recently introduced weapon, we really wanted to bring in this idea of debuffing and sort of a counter to some healing.
Which would have been fine if it was just doing debuffing and buffing, right? In the grand scheme of things, if it was doing buffing and debuffing, sure. But the fact that you can turn on Vorpal Blade and win any 1v1 trade, that's ridiculous. I think the duration of Vorpal Blade should be turned down, right? So there is counterplay to it. Right now, there's really not that much counterplay. I threw on a Void Gauntlet and just Void Band gear. No accessories, just threw on a Void Gauntlet. Not even using a secondary weapon with int. I didn't even have that much int. And I'm going against my cat, the normal people that I'll duel out front of Windsword, and just fucking nearly win every single time. Never played Void Gauntlet in a PvP setting. Never. It deals too much fucking damage. And its zoning control is way too fucking strong. Everyone knows do not step on Oblivion, right? Everyone knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Why the fuck does it need to be so strong? I get it. You got a new weapon. You want it to be played. But if it's too strong, it just takes away from everything else. Fuck, man. All melee and fucking OPR right now is like Void Gauntlet.
Debuffing as a different playstyle. So definitely look in with each weapon to bring in something new that changes up gameplay. The second thing we look at is sort of trying to fill gaps, right? Like we heard loud and clear from healers, hey, what do I use with my life staff? And I think the Void Gauntlet was a complement to that. Like those two weapons pair really well together. So
Void staff.
Also just trying to fill gaps like that.
Okay, and speaking of weapons kind of pairing together, can you talk about the Blunderbuss and how it might be different from the musket?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah.
So the Blunderbuss,
I feel like when they release Blunderbuss, it's going to be overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's been the common trend with them. They don't know how to bring something into the economy without it feeling overbearing.
Yeah.
Right? Void Gauntlet is ridiculous. And it went on for way too long. Honestly, if you brought something in, I would be watching it. I would literally have, listen, intern 1, intern 2, just go watch OPRs for like the next week.
Yeah.
And see how Void Gauntlet plays out. Right? There's some people that play Void Gauntlet and they're not abusing the ever-loving shit out of Vorpal Blade. And they're actually really good with it. And I don't feel too bad about losing to them. But when you just see someone throw on Vorpal Blade and just spam left clicks, it's like, listen, you guys complained about Melee doing it, but everyone's doing it now with Void Gauntlet.
A really exciting new weapon we'll be coming out with pretty soon here. And it's, when you think of the musket, it's a little more of a strategic weapon. It's a longer range, a little...
Strategic. No, it's not. It's a pussy weapon. It's a flat-out pussy weapon. People will sit max distance and snipe all thing aim. And now there's like 10 per team. So Melee are just getting dinged one after the other. Hey, Izzy.
Yeah. I'll take care of it.
I already got it. Oh, you got it.
Oh.
Anyways. Yeah, musket,
lower
fucking hate
rate
it.
of fire, all those type of things. But when you get to the Blunderbuss, you're going to think more excitement, more explosion, a little more chaotic, I would call it. There's some navigational tools on it, which are really...
Honestly, what I would love to see is like an AoE cone from the Blunderbuss that has like a little bit of a knockback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want to see a lot of like utility from it in a very aggressive manners. And I want to see people being able to push points with Blunder. Imagine being a balanced game. Yeah, that's never going to fucking happen. That's literally never going to happen because they do too many changes at once. And these changes are based on what casual perception is, which is the problem. You can't balance games based on casual. You literally have to go to the top players. And if it feels too difficult for the casual player to use, then you can kind of tune it up and make certain abilities more ease of use, changing the amount of animation frames that it has, stuff like that. You know, but they're literally just changing damage
really
numbers.
Exciting, and a little more of a run and gun style. So a definite difference in pace for this one in comparison to the musket. And it's going to be a little more short to mid range, and also I think it's going to pair really, really nicely with some melee weapons. So. And maybe even some staffs. So it's going to be an interesting weapon that has a lot of different uses.
Okay. Is that a hint on what it scales based on?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that yet.
All right. Speaking of
we
weapons
all know
that
right
are
now that is
heavily
strengthening.
requested and talked about by the community, the greatsword. Can you tell me anything about it?
We are working on a greatsword. I think we've heard it. I think it's going to be an awesome weapon. We talked about wanting to change up gameplay with each weapon. I don't want to give away too much yet about the greatsword, but I think it'll have this concept of stance switching and like having different modes within the weapon that I think will be really special and bring something new to the table.
Okay. I mean, that sounds great because people are knocking down our doors for that greatsword. Another thing people are also asking a lot about is daggers. Is that something coming down the road, or?
You know, daggers are definitely a crowd favorite. We have a lot of different...
If they add with stealth, like full-on stealth, this game is not meant for that. I don't mind pseudo stealth, but like full-on stealth, ooh, yeah. I think it would be a good check and balance for musket style. Honestly, if they add stealth, like full-on stealth to the game, I'm gonna go sword and shield with daggers. And I'm literally just gonna run up. Actually, you know what you could do? Fucking go daggers with great axe, right? And if it has like a stun and you're in stealth, like kind of like how rogues do, imagine like a fucking sword or an great axe dagger setup where the dagger walks up behind like these musket players, stuns them, and then straight into a fucking execute. Oh my god, that shit would be sexy. That shit would be funny as fuck too.
Weapons on our table that we're looking at to make after the greatsword, and I think it's definitely at the table. I don't think it's
a big table.
It's a pretty large table with a lot of different weapons on it, and I think it's one that is near the front, but it's not quite there yet.
Okay. I'll take that as an answer. And another one of the last questions that we see just asked constantly is, when can I use a shield and another single-handed weapon?
That one hasn't made the table yet. And I just want to be a little.
That one's still outside knocking on the door?
It's trying to get a seat at the
Imagine
table,
like a
and
morning star
it's
or
something we really
like
want to
that.
do.
Imagine if shield stats applied to your second weapon.
Yeah.
They should probably do that before they consider doing anything else with shield. I don't know why they haven't done it. They've had so many complaints about how if you use sword and shield, your second weapon literally is missing out on 15 plus stats.
Yeah.
But it's actually a really large endeavor for us to accomplish this, and we want to focus on filling in the other play spaces with the other weapons first before we go over to that area.
Okay, all right. So it's knocking on the door, but we hear the feedback.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we wouldn't do, like, it's going to take us a while to really build out a system where you could flexibly interchange weapons like that. But like creating another weapon that does pair with the shield, sort of like sword and shield, like making a specific pairing, is something that is not on the table yet, so to speak, but
Right.
but could be sooner.
Okay. Do you have a favorite weapon pairing, or has it changed since since you started designing the game a while ago?
I was a big great axe hammer sword user, so but that recently the meta is shifting a little bit, which is cool in a game. So looking for my new pairing.
He's a great axe hammer sword user, guys. The fuck's a hammer sword?
Yeah, I always run sword and shield and great axe, and added in the warhammer and great axe, and now I'm actually doing warhammer and arrow. I just like the bow and arrow now. So
We watch
that's a lie.
a ton of streams, a lot of content creators. We play in game with all these folks. Has there been anything that surprised you in the way people are pairing weapons or kind of their build?
Maybe not a pairing, but one of the things that I loved was some of the creative uses of the Ice Gauntlet, like the sneak up PvP moves. Like we see people hiding behind a bush and see a big PvP mob come in, and then they jump out of the bush and put Blizzard and all these things on and sort of melt the whole group. That was super cool to see.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoyed was people just playing around and making their own paladin build. That was something we actually had not.
That was super
really
cool to see
thought
one
about when we were
player
making all these,
being so
updates
overpowered
to
they
our
could just
weapons and
melt
everything.
a group.
When we first saw it, I was like, this is amazing.
Well, they couldn't melt the group, but it was toxic to the point where people were fucking losing their goddamn mind.
Yeah.
It's like, here, let me go sword and shield with a life staff and you'll never kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Because the damage mitigation and fortify through the fucking roof, it was just, that shit was so toxic.
Might have been a little overpowered for the people playing against it, so we might have made a little changes there, but overall we just love the fact that people can kind of go in there and make their own class, and I think that's just an amazing thing.
Yeah, I mean, what's been really cool, having worked on New World for so long, the game now belongs to everybody else, right? And we're kind of just witnessing how they're engaging with it. Before it's been, kind of theory crafting and wondering how people are going to use the game at scale, so it's fascinating to watch. And I think that's going to motivate, future tweaks and balances and improvements.
Yeah, for sure. I love checking the web and finding better builds for weapons that I've worked on. It's like, wow, they thought of something I didn't. It's super cool.
It's amazing. I love watching the streamers, and especially the PvP streamers, and watching how how their new tactics are evolving every day. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Next, we are going to be talking about endgame content. So in this next segment, like I said, we're going to be talking about endgame content. We have Dave and Phil both here to talk about this. I think one of the big things that the community is asking about, and it's kind of a hot topic right now, is why did you decide to remove the high watermark system?
Well, I think there were some improvements we wanted to make is how I would classify it. And I think the two big things I think of is one, the high watermark system was completely random, so players had no control over it. And with the gypsum system, players can do activities and then get gypsum and choose which.
For a casual player, this switch may have seen worse for them, but to be honest, the gypsum system is really good, in my opinion. Because it's a guaranteed upgrade and stuff like that. It's a guaranteed progression as long as you're trying different aspects of the game. I feel like they nerf certain things a little too far, which I think they stated in the dev stream, right? Because they've stated on the forums, and they talked about this before, that they're going to be boosting certain zones, like lead zones were a little bit overly nerfed. So they're bringing those back up. So I think the gypsum system helps out big time. The expertise system, what we have now, is a huge game changer, right? Because we can actually see where we're at, see where we need to progress. You're not like wasting, like if they added gypsum without the quality of life of seeing what our expertise is, we'd probably be wasting our gypsum on things that we may have pretty close to being max already, versus like actually catching up the lower end stuff, things that we aren't normally finding. The fact you get to pick what you want to upgrade is a huge thing. And I think they could have went a lot further with it without like removing, if cooldown on generating orbs and cooldown on the chest, like the actual chest itself, is a little bit too overbearing. I think they could have just done cooldown on the orb, or on the orb, creating the orbs, and that would have been fine, right? Because then people would be more keen on doing all the orbs, and then they can focus on whatever they want to focus on. I don't think it should be limited to, you can only increase each piece once per 24 hours. I think that's a little too much.
Which cast they craft, right? So if you want to increase your sword, you can do that. You have some control over it, and that's
Yeah, if you want to increase your sword, you can use an orb on that. And if you want to increase your shield, you can use an orb on that. Did you know that sword and shield requires 2 fucking orbs to upgrade?
It's really important because sometimes you just get unlucky with rolls. And if you have a weapon or a piece of gear you really want to advance, not being able to could be, sort of devastating. So that was one big thing. The other thing is we just wanted more variety of activities, right? Like with the old system, it really rewarded named enemies, right? And almost too much. It was too inefficient of a path. And so everyone just did that, and they missed all this other cool endgame content we have.
So named enemies weren't that strong of a farming system. Like a lot of people sat there and go, oh, the people at the beginning got the benefit because they were farming named enemies for like fucking 2 weeks straight and maxed out. You can do the same. You can get it done in the same amount of time, doing less work by doing your chest farms, by literally just farms. Chest farms are the main way to go. And then make sure you do your portals so you get your gypsum, do your OPR so you get your gypsum, so on and so forth. And if you get all your gypsum every single day, that's a lot. You know what I mean? So you're always going to be ranking up everything. And then on top of that, like the drop from chests are better than the named enemies. And even OPR isn't that bad. I mean, it's okay, right? It's not terrible, but I feel like people did named enemies because there was no cooldown on it, right? Yeah. If you could loot a chest every hour, then people are going to go with that method. That's why when we had the Shattered Mountain supply stockpile run, that's what people were doing. They weren't bothering with the fucking named enemies anymore. You would see players, you could still do it to this day, but they nerfed it quite hard, is you can go to Odium and fucking all these places and clear through them, and those stockpiles there actually give expertise bumps. You could still do it, and they're on a 1 hour cooldown. So that in comparison to saying going to Breakwater and doing the Siren Farm, fucking going through here, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Siren Farm requires 10 people at least. Well, no, you could probably 5-man it if they all have decent gear. But we would do like 10-man groups with basic luck gear, and you would go through and clear that, and it's not about the chest anymore. It's just farming those because you didn't have that cooldown. So I don't think named enemies were really the issue. It's just, it was the only thing that we had, right? So if you only have one option available, of course, that's going to be what you go with.
So with the different gypsums, all the different activities, you have incentives to do everything. You can do corrupted breaches, you can do all the different activities.
I 100% agree with this. Anyone that says otherwise is a fucking fool. I like a game that encourages you to try new things, because here's the thing. You may not like doing portals initially, But once you do it once or twice, you may go, you know what, this is actually pretty fun. It gives you a lot of loot, yada yada. You'll find aspects of the game that you haven't messed with before, and it becomes rewarding, and you're kind of like, you know what, this is actually pretty fun to do. You know, you're getting a flavor of the game that you haven't normally tried out. If you go to Baskin Robbins and you're always getting the pistachio, bro, you need to add some flavor and spice to your life. You can't just go with that one flavor, you know. So them opening up and kind of encouraging players to try other things, I really do enjoy. A lot of people got burnout from the named enemies.
Additions, arenas, which I think is some of the most fun and difficult content in the game that no one's really doing. So we really wanted to bring people to all the content we have made.
Sure.
On top of that, too, I think it's worth noting that we're no longer calling it the high watermark system. We're calling it expertise, because that's really what it is. You're raising your level of expertise on each weapon or type of item that you can equip in the game. And another big thing, too, that we've done to help give it a lot more structure, and one of I think the big misses that we had when we initially rolled it out is it was invisible to players. So now when you go into your paper doll, you can see, you know, what is your level of expertise per every item that you have equipped. Also, when you do get a bump now in your expertise, you get a nice notification that pops up on screen, this big, beautiful banner that lets you know just what you got and what it affected.
I
And
think that was a very nice touch.
Great. I love it now. It's like after you loot a chest or kill an expedition boss and you get like that item that raises your expertise up, you get this nice toast and it just feels like you just got stronger. It's really cool now.
Nice. That's great. There's another question that keeps kind of arising is why downscaling gear instead of raising the gear score to a new cap?
That's a good question. Well, when we looked at players' progression along the expertise system, we did see that very, very few people had actually maxed out their expertise, and we wanted to address that portion before even attempting to raise the gear score. So with the gypsum system and surfacing the expertise now to players, we're giving, as Dave mentioned, a lot more control to players to start to grow and progress on that path and have it feel more tangible to them as they do it. The other thing too is when we do raise our gear score, we want to attach that to some good meaty content. We don't just want to raise it just because, if that makes sense. We want to make sure that there's a reason that you need to get to, above 600 gear score now to go attack some larger threats in the game.
Yeah.
Incentivizing having high gear score. I 100% agree. What I don't agree with is this 625 mutation thing in order to get improvements of PvP, right? When there's no PvP accessibility. PvP right now is literally just wars, and I think that's a problem. Like, OPR has fucking brutes and bears and walls and fucking resource farmers. Honestly, if they removed brutes from OPR and made the portal provide like a buff instead of just giving you fucking brutes out the ass, I think OPR would probably be a lot more favorable, right? But because it is what it is and there's nothing we can fucking do about it, it's not really a PvP centric game mode, right? Only wars are. And then on top of that, you have the PvE counterpart, which is invasions, right? So literally the game has more PvE content than PvP, which honestly it's fine, right?
Yeah.
I don't think arenas is the proper fix, but I want to see PvP more encouraged, right? When we were playing in beta, you remember how I kept saying, like, I could imagine people on a full-on open world scale fight trying to take over these forts and blah, blah, blah. I think holding control of a fort should give something other than influence pushing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean like faction quest incentive. I mean, like, there should be, like, just food for thought. If you hold a fort based on the number of forts, increase loot chance, right? If you apply some arbitrary luck value to forts, it would encourage people to take control of forts before, like, say, doing a chest run and stuff like that. And you may need people at those forts in order to hold them down while you're doing said chest run and yada, yada, yada. I feel like they just need to add more elements to PvP other than tacking on and throwing on PvE elements onto every PvP thing, right? It doesn't feel good. So when he's talking about like, oh, we're adding reasons to hit the high GS, the only reason is to do more damage and take less damage, right? You're not getting set gear to get bonuses against set things, right? They talked about how mutation gear is going to be more favorable towards mutation. I would love to see Dynasty make like fighting corruption, you're that much more powerful against corruption for like, say, that would be like transferable to invasions. You know what I mean? It'd be really good. But right now, what we're seeing is when they're adding the GS mitigation implementation into the game in the next upcoming week or two, PvE players are just going to be stronger in PvP.
Yeah.
Initially, until things balance out and everyone's at 625. But now, food for thought, in order for you to get, say if you want to swap weapons and try a different playstyle, you now need Umbral Shards for your new fucking set, which kind of makes this infinite loot cycle where you're actually getting funneled into playing one type of style, and it's not that enjoyable.
How do you see these changes affecting crafters?
Yeah, I think what we want for crafters is for them to be able to participate, but in their own way, right? Like we don't want to have to force them into activities. And what crafters most want to do is craft, right? Like they love gathering the materials and then, developing their skills, the trophies, the potions, their gear set to really maximize crafting. So what we want to do is give them a path towards that. So any crafted gear will never be downscaled or affected by expertise. So it's an alternative path to get towards end game gear.
Which I think is fair.
Invest a lot of time and effort in getting that. So
because it's fucking expensive.
To have a viable path.
Yeah, make sure that still feels rewarding. Another thing we're doing too, we're adding a new reward type as well along with the system. And as players battle in these our end game zones, they can acquire a new type of item called a timeless shard, and these will be either armor.
Timeless Shard took over the entire fucking game, and it's so much easier to hit end-game gear just because you can roll exactly what the fuck you want.
Or weapon shards, and when they're crafted, what
obtainable
they'll provide
through PvE,
they
by the way,
act as an artifact recipe. So it's a one-time use craft, but with that craft, players will have a guaranteed attribute. So you get a timeless bow shard as an example that would have a fixed dexterity attribute. And then you can also control what perk you put on that with the perk mods during crafting. So there's a lot more control that those items are going to give crafters in pursuit of that perfect rolled item.
Right.
Yeah.
And are those pretty rare, Phil? Can you sell them when you get them?
They are pretty rare. But I think if you run the elite zones enough and you're doing the end game content, you should come across them frequently enough. And can you sell them?
Yeah.
Wait, can you get them from elite zones? I thought they were only from expeditions. I'm pretty sure they're only from expeditions.
I got a few timeless, but I can't remember how I got
you did?
it.
Okay, so you can get it through chest runs. Okay. Well, that's fair. That's fair. I thought it was mainly through, because you get it from every boss in an expedition, which honestly, I like rewarding rewards like that. But at the same time, like, I prefer seeing named loot. That's been a thing for me.
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
What I like about our crafting system is that anyone can engage in it if they want, but we also don't force it, right? Like, so what's cool is, like, if I'm not a crafter and I get one of these timeless shards, it's sort of like hitting a little mini jackpot, right? Like, I know I can go to the trading post and sell this thing to a crafter who's really going to want it.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So going back to the gypsums a little bit, why aren't all gypsums the same? And why does it take more time to create something with one type of gypsum over another?
That's a good question. So the different activities that Dave mentioned, and doing things like running expeditions, opening elite chests, killing bosses or elite named enemies, right? Participating in Outpost Rush. a lot of different in crafting and closing max level corruption breaches in the world. All these things will give you different colors of gypsum. And then the recipes, they require different amounts of gypsum because, some of those activities are much more easy to accomplish than others. So, you might have to open, 3 elite, have to get a good roll out of 3 elite chests versus like getting a good roll off of killing more elite named enemies or things like that. And then, things like expedition and outpost rush that take a little bit longer of your time would you'd have to do less of those to be able to craft a gypsum cast.
Okay.
And we got a super interesting 8th gypsum that we recently added with the Winter Convergence event.
Diamond.
We wanted to just keep increasing the rewards based on feedback.
Guys, like seriously, if you haven't already, every single day, mine should be off cooldown right now. Every single day, you should be going over and looting these trees. Every single day, you should be looting them. Because after the Winter Convergence event ends, Diamond is no more accessible. And you do want to stack up a ton of gypsum, because after the next coming update, when everything gets pushed to 600, I would actually save those until after you get your expertise naturally to 600, and then you use those gypsum to get umbral shards. So I think that's one thing people should be stockpiling is those diamond gypsums.
We saw in the PTR, and also give something for endgame players to do. So we've now introduced diamond gypsum into the Winter Convergence event, and so that'll be an 8th way you can get a cast, which I think people will really enjoy.
Nice. So
and it's free.
There are people who think that expeditions aren't worth their time and effort, and they're just not doing them.
Guys, if you're not doing expeditions, you should be. Genesis and Lazarus gives a lot of fucking expertise bumps. On top of that, it gives you timeless shards. Really fucking nice.
Do you agree?
Well, no, I think there really is some truth to that to a level, and we've been working hard to try to address a lot of that. With this update, I think that expeditions become a really great source for leveling your expertise. In an expedition, you get a guaranteed random expertise drop when you defeat an expedition boss. You're also going to be opening elite chests.
Real quick, for anyone that ever says it's not guaranteed because they've experienced killing a boss and not getting an expertise bump, it's an expertise bump to the select item that it drops. So if it drops a sword and you're at 590 already, you can't get a bump. It's not going to change the loot table because you need expertise for rings. It doesn't work like that. So there is still RNG. If you have certain things maxed out and the only items that drop are for the maxed out categories, you're not going to see a bump, right? There's people are fucking, they take this guaranteed thing and they're like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Like I've done X amount of expeditions and I still haven't gotten my rings. It's because rings aren't guaranteed to drop just because you haven't maxed out, because you've maxed out everything else, right? Yeah. So it's only guaranteed on the items that it drops, not on the items that you need.
Which have the possibility to reward you with obsidian gypsum. And you also get specific gypsum from doing the expedition itself. So if you're completing these dungeon runs, that gives you almost 3 opportunities per the time invested in that dungeon that expedition run to increase your expertise. So pretty rewarding.
And timeless shards will really come from expeditions, right? That's one of the main sources.
That's one of the main sources for timeless weapon and item shards for sure.
Nice. Earlier in the show, we talked a lot about the mutators. How do you see the mutators affecting the end game?
A lot. Okay. So Phil said, we don't want to increase gear score until we have new meaningful content that brings hard challenges. And I'm sure, as Mike said, mutators are hard, like really hard. So this is going to be a time where
they just hit harder and
because you're going to need it to deal with the difficulty 10 mutators.
That's all it is.
So we're not going too much in the details yet, but as you do mutators, you're going to be getting a new resource that you can use to upgrade specific weapons. And you'll need to sort of do that as you're ranking up in the difficulty chain on mutators. You'll have to keep increasing your gear a little bit to sort of keep up with the more difficult enemies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds awesome. I'm really excited about these changes, guys.
They're going to be great. I'm super excited. I'm really excited for our players to like just get in there and start feeling the power.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just really palpable now when you get in there and you start earning your expertise bumps and you start getting those good rolls and crafting your gypsum. Like it all feels really rewarding. So I'm really excited for people to experience it.
All right, great. Thanks for sitting down and talking about Endgame with us. And we'll move on to the next segment.
Quests and lore. We're gonna skip quests and lore because quests and lore doesn't exist. We're gonna go into the final thoughts and see what they try and recap and what is the important parts of their stream that they supply to the community. Quests and lore is so boring because literally all they talk about is like, oh, the winter grass or the winter event is huge. It's so impactful. No one cares, dude. No one even. All we see is, oh, it's a forever winter thing that literally has no real effect, and you can ignore the whole event, and it's not impactful in any way, shape, or form.
That was a haul. We got through a lot, and I just want to say thank you to anyone and everyone that made it to the end of this video. All of these questions we pulled from the forums, from social, they all came from the community. So I really hope that you found it informative and that some of the things you were wondering about you now have answers to. And we gave you a little bit of a look at what's coming in the future, what we're doing behind the scenes. So thank you.
Yeah, we just appreciate the feedback. We are so excited to answer questions and do this. As a matter of fact, if we hear from the community,
what do I think an ideal holiday and limited event would look like? I think seasonal events are a thing, but I think it should be more tied to Eternum, right? Or MMORPGs in general. One of the things that you could see is in most MMORPGs, the winter or summer events are usually just cash shop items and something that doesn't really feel that impactful, right? So I think it should be something that's deeply rooted. For example, a full overhaul of the entire world, right? We should see snow everywhere, right? Yeah. We should actually feel the effects. It should change the whole game, right? Or at least in places that make sense, right? Shattered Mountains, it's shattered fucking mountains, right? There is some snow there, but the whole thing needs to be coated in snow. Right now, I think it was like, isn't it Great Cleave? Great Cleave's already covered in snow, but that's the default, right? So it should be like a hailstorm over there. And then Eden Grove should have fucking leaves that are dead. You know what I mean? They take this event idea and it's just only impactful in certain locations, such as the settlements. And then we have like these Yetis taking up caves that had no purpose before. Right? So to me, like, yeah, settlements are fine, but it needs to be really deeply rooted, tied into the game. For example, a chilling effect in certain high locations. You're no longer able to go to the top of these mountains because it's very fucking cold. Right? It's something that has to be tied into the gameplay itself rather than certain small events. Right, we have Gleamite that comes down, pops everywhere, and then you collect it and you turn it into food. Right, the Gleamite could be a good touch, but there needs to be other elements to it. Nothing of it whatsoever is going to be memorable. Are you going to be playing this game in like 3 months and go, oh, like Gleamite's going to come up, in December? Well, let me be more accurate. When we get closer to wintertime, are you looking forward to this event reoccurring? Right? Is it the expectation? If something feels deeply rooted, during wintertime, these certain factors are going to come into play. I feel like trees should be growing slower. Herbs should be growing slower. So people are stockpiling ahead of time in order to compensate for the winter that's coming. During summertime, you have all these tropical fruits that provide these kind of buffs and yada, yada, yada. There's so many things you can do it that like deeply root into the game that makes the players feel the winter. Right now, we don't even feel it. I ignore it most of the time now. The only time I stop is when I'm on my farming route and I see Gleamite come down so I can go buy more food.
Yeah.
These Yetis were only impactful during the quest and they don't mean anything. There's no snow anywhere except for locations that already had it in settlements. So to me, a limited time or event shouldn't have deep roots, right? To put a long story short, it needs to be deeply rooted into the game. Winter grass, the winter event just wasn't that. So if you did all your stuff week 1 or 2, you kind of just ignored it from then on forth, right? You could actually ignore an event. A holiday event should not be ignorable.
Community that this was
And I
beneficial
would
and you
still
like this, we'll
rather
be
have
happy to
had
do
that
it.
they fixed all the bugs and stuff than release a winter event.
Yeah. I think I kind of like the idea of seasonal fruit and food. Yeah, exactly. It adds a dynamic feel to the game. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you want your game to feel huge and impactful, I mean, yeah, I agree. It could be a dev nightmare, right? It's easy to change just the settlements because they're copy-paste of each other anyways. But over time, they could implement these changes. Because there's this game, it's a Japanese game back in the day that was so realistic that people their minds were blown, right? Where the weather inside the game correlated to what it was like in Japan at that time, right?
Wow.
You could turn around and call the police about an event, and then your character goes up to do it, and he's kind of like, you know what? I should handle this myself. It's just little details that kind of bring everything together. Yeah, exactly. Animal Crossing is, Animal Crossing is the perfect example to me. During wintertime, it's fucking wintertime. And I agree that Eternum is a lot bigger than, Animal Crossing, and we could see this in the future. But this holiday event was pretty much a joke. And it kind of shows that they will release things unpolished. I mean, that's the common trend with AGS right now. Everything that they've been releasing is unpolished, and it's pretty fucking insulting.
And also, it's gonna be a nightmare for the first time they do it. But after that, they have the coding and stuff. So then all they need to do is just change the coding up,
do the
like
update.
copy paste kind of. Yeah, exactly. Copy paste kind of thing.
So as a developer or a software engineer, after you first program certain locations, because they could have done it in a smaller scale, right? They definitely could have done it in a smaller scale and done just say, for example, the starter zones and maybe some of these zones could have been covered in snow. Actually, you could even leave Weaver's Fen alone because it's a marsh, right? You could probably have a little couple ice patches of fucking water and shit like that, and that would be set. But for the rest of these, you could slow down the tree growth, no problem. Right? That's not difficult. And then on top of that, once you have these covered in snow, they're all categorized in subroutines, right? They're all part of their own little projects. So those get disabled and pretty much become toggleable after the first time you do it. And then you can add to it each time you release a new zone, right? You just add another subroutine and go, okay, now we're going to do Morningdale, Restless Shore, Evanscale Breach. Right now, they only did settlements. It's so small, and they're all copy-pastes of each other. Listen, like, if you have actually looked at, I think Everfall's a little bit different than most. If you look at Windsword, right? See the layout? You got that trisection, and then there's a little T right here. Let's go look at Morningdale.
It's hard to see because of the
Oh, okay, yeah, true.
stream of it.
Yeah. Here. Let me go to OBS real quick.
While you explain this, I'm just gonna run out and pee.
Go ahead.
Oh.
So if you look at, I'll start with Morningdale since. So you got this little T section right here, right? And then it goes out into a fork in the road that splits off into another fork in the road. But then you go to Windsword. It's a T section with a fork in the road into another fork in the road. It's literally a copy paste. In Palia as an MMO, they are looking like they will have dynamic stuff, no combat, but it's more your type of style. I don't know what that is. Let me Google that real quick. Ah, okay. It's produced or it's published Singularity 6, huh? Let me look at some images of this. I'm getting like PS2 vibes from this. What is it about? Cozy World, Enchanted World. After disappearing 1,000 years ago, humans just begun reappearing in Palia, one of the most newly merged, blah, blah. Gameplay, garden, fish, cook, and so much more. Oh, it's a crafter's paradise. It's a crafter's paradise, right? It's pretty much just pass the time, enjoy yourself, relax. No, it's not like something you really super hard grind out. It's just enjoy. Yeah, crafter paradise games are pretty fun. I have like a huge competitive nature, but these are one of those things where it kind of reminds. It's a more refined Minecraft style of MMORPGs, right? Where Minecraft is kind of like build your own stuff and do whatever you want. Palia is more of a cosmetically appealing. I do like the retro look. Yeah. I would agree. I bet you it's going to be pretty popular. It hits that niche market really well. Yeah. Because that's something people wanted from Animal Crossing for a long time, was an MMOS feel, right? Like even a co-op or multiplayer. Right now you can visit each other's like cities and whatever, but it's not a shared city, which I think a lot of people were complaining about. But I think it would be I think it's a wholesome experience. There we go. It would be considered a wholesome experience. So before I get too sidetracked, I'm going to close up the dev update. And all I'm going to say is, to recap everything, essentially they're prioritizing like a lot of elements when they should be narrowing their resources onto one. Balance changes would probably be rank 3. The latency should be number 1, like desynchronizations. The netcode should be a lot more refined would be the appropriate word. And then followed after refining the netcode would be along the lines of like pretty much fluid gameplay, right? Having fluid gameplay. And with fluid gameplay, you would have to address a lot of bug changes, like weapon swapping and such like. stuff like that. And then after you make the game feel fluid and is consistent, then you start balancing, and those balances would feel a lot more appropriate, right? Because if you try and balance Great Axe right now with desync, it doesn't matter what numbers you put on it, it's desync, right? So at the end of the day, I think those are the things that they need to be addressing and not really worrying too much about odds and ends such as like mutations. If they add mutations and they add a leaderboard, it may incentivize people to focus on that, but they're definitely going to lose a lot of PvPers from it. But so that's my conclusion of the dev update. I think them being very transparent with us is very good, but it doesn't matter if they're showing us that they're ignoring the community and what their game truly needs, because we did lose a lot of fucking players, and it's because of this man right here, game director. Too many different priorities instead of focusing what the game needs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I
Can actually
100% believe that too. Like, I would actually say that Wrath of the Lich King, even though a lot of players were super fucking, like, it was easy to be good in Wrath of the Lich King because a lot of classes were strong.
Mm-hmm.
If you ignore Death Knight, right, just ignore Death Knight, PvP felt good, right? If you look at, for example, Burning Crusade, well, it might have been because I was the SLSL Warlock, but most classes weren't really oppressive in Burning Crusade. In Vanilla, though, we're not going to talk about that because shit was fucking crazy on Vanilla. You had Wind Fury, proccing Wind Fury times 9 on fucking Shamans, Frost Shock spam, you had Palm Pyro, you had all that crazy shit. It was just, Vanilla was a mess. But Burning Crusade felt a lot more refined. Burning Crusade was just like, it was a good direction. And then Wrath of the Lich King got even better. And then it started going downhill once EA took over. Because I think Wrath of the Lich King was the last official Blizzard solo focused, right? Because anything after Wrath of the Lich King was EA directed. So,
and after Activision took over, it just all went down into the
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think New World has its problems just because of fluid gameplay, right? For example, this is going to be my biggest prime example of something that is silly. In games where you have melee, where if I hit something, like say if that was a person, right, the detection of it, right, and I have to hit the person to make contact, why would I have a skill that when I use it, it doesn't carry momentum? Why does it stop me in that spot? Why doesn't it have any reach? That makes no sense. Skills should have momentum, right? Like if you do evasive shot with a fucking bow, you should be able to tumble and have like a short movement increase. It's these kind of refinements that should have been done at the beginning, but they're just not there. It's like they took some of the fundamentals of Dark Souls, added to this game, and then completely left everything out. Had more lore and compelling stories? Yes, I 100% agree. The lore isn't there, right? They're in journals. No one wants to read all the journals.
Draw the people in with good storytelling.
Yeah, have some cinematics, man. They missed an opportunity on cinematics for the main boss that they were talking about, right? The girl in fucking Dynasty. There's no backstory, right? It's all in journals and no one knows it, right? There's a YouTube video where this guy's like, oh, I finally discovered the fucking story of New World. It's a joke, man. At the beginning,
no one is going to use 20 minutes reading journals while they're just getting quest lines done.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Everyone's in a rush to get to the end and fucking have all their gear set up and enjoy the fucking playability of the game. The story should naturally come to the player by playing the fucking game, but that's not the case. The intro had a really good start, so it's possible that they could do it, but they just chose not to.
And the thing about gamers is, you need to explain the story to us like we're 5. Feed it to us. Don't force us to go out and seek the story. Feed it to us. Explain it to us. Don't force us to work for it.
I will agree that Blizzard did have good storytelling, but they also fall short on certain things where there's story that you would actually have to read the books to understand the story. Right? That's one thing. The main story should be as easily understood as if we were there. Meanwhile, outside should have little details that we aren't aware of. As a player, if we're going through this gigantic war, I should have the feeling and understanding of that war. I feel like my character has more knowledge of the lore than I do, just because it wasn't told through Final Fantasy storytelling, though. Yeah, that's one thing I stated about before, too. Final Fantasy storytelling is amazing, right? They tell the story so well. That's one thing that they get so much praise about. And Guild Wars kind of had the storytelling in 1, but in 2, it was really good as well. You fall in love with the fucking companion that you have, and when something happens, you feel fucking pretty upset. You know, in here, there's nothing.
And we talked about it before, that this game has so much like role-playing potential as well.
Izzy, that's plagiarism, because Istera literally said that yesterday. The exact same story, or the exact same sentence, the exact same. The exact same thing. On Eternum, everything's infused with Azoth and nothing can die. Right? That's why we have that blue respawn mechanic.
It's not her fault, though. She was like halfway there, halfway not there.
No, 100%. But that's the truth of it, though. If you get the same exact sentence from 2 separate people, it's the truth. It's so fucking bad, man. Because we want to be immersed in this world, but we can't. You can't. You're gonna read... Is there a way to pull up all the fucking journals? Documentation. You're gonna read through all this?
I mean, we could make a stream of it. Collect all the journals, then make a stream of it, reading them out loud. My baby's head just exploded a little bit.
Some of these are short and sweet. That's fine.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty good. Then you have some that are starts getting a little bit lengthy.
I mean, baby, you always wanted to read out stories and stuff on stream. Here you go.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I'll probably fall asleep too. It's okay.
Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll become that one guy that collects all the journals. And then the sight of them was like a knife to the heart. Losing the bridge was a blow to our morale, but it occurred not soon after, nearly pushed us to the retreat of the Cleave entirely. The entire season, the corrupted still commanded the bridge, but as the season ended, they were joined by others, and among their number, we saw our own brothers and sisters. They were standing guard as they had before, but this time, they stood not against the corrupted, but with them. Just fucking read through all of it. Wait. I got it. Where is it?
Yeah, he does have a pretty sexy voice.
Or pop out one of these.
Even the snow fights us. It's a slow march.
Baby, no.
Yeah, I mean, we can make a stream of collecting all the notes.
Yeah.
With some gameplay in the area. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be hard for us to do.
I lost up so fast.
So good. I mean, how many pages are there?
About 1,000.
Are there really 1,000? I can't even check the achievement. This shit is so old. Anyways. Hey, it's content and public needs it.
I agree, see. I agree. It's something we talked about before as well, baby.
Yeah, what we could do is we could just record us going through and collecting the journals and using those as the background footage for the read over. Right? All you have to do is kind of mute the sound.
Yeah.
Right? Just remove the anything outside of the gameplay audio, and then you tone down the gameplay audio in the fucking edit. And then you would have the voiceover be the main volume. And so you would hear like the bludgeoning of fucking the battle axe and all the kind of stuff. I think it would be pretty good. We can start working on that.
I was about to say we can start working on it now.
Yeah, we could start doing that tomorrow. I think I'm gonna end the stream. It's 2 o'clock.
Okay.
We did have a good lengthy stream. Yesterday was 3 hours. Today was 2 hours.
We gonna continue on The Witcher, baby?
Yeah, we'll probably continue The Witcher. No spoiling on The Witcher. I haven't seen it before. Yeah.
I've been getting him into Witcher since the new season came out.
Yeah, Witcher's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, Skier and Geralt is the best combo out there. I love them.
It still blows my mind how skills don't carry momentum.
Yeah.
Like when I do that, my feet should drag on the ground as my character's swinging up the axe. Like little shit like that, man. It would add so much fluid dynamic to the combat and would actually make melee usable. Because right now people miss the lunge because they were able to keep up with players. But if you were able to keep momentum, like here's the thing, right? If I'm swinging this axe and I'm chasing someone and it kept the momentum and I could stay on them, but by the time I reach the final hit, my movement has slowed down some, so the momentum has been lost. And then I would have to continue to build up that momentum and back into a sprint to get back on them again. I feel like it would be a lot more balanced, and then it would keep the gameplay really well. But I do like the idea of doing the journals. We have talked about it before. It's just, I have ADHD, so I get sidetracked easily.
And also, it's gonna take a while. Like, both collecting them and reading it. But I think it'll be a good stream, honestly.
It would probably take us, what, like a week or two?
Yeah, probably.
That's if I'm not collecting on my own.
Yeah.
May, I'm home. I'm home from work, honey. Give me a smooch.
And maybe we should split the stream up so you don't read out for like 5 hours straight. I don't think your voice is gonna be able to handle that.
5 hours? No, you don't read it as you're doing the gameplay. Like the gameplay, we would just be streaming and then.
I know.
Now I go slave at the furnace.
How do I? Bam. All right. Anyways, we'll call it there. Yeah, it's something that's not broken about the game. That's so sad but true. Ah, beeswax.
More.
Beeswax is the bee's knees of furnishing. All right. Anyways, we'll call the stream there. Thank you for stopping by, Izzy. Greatly appreciated. I think they're going in the right direction with this game. I just wish they would target certain things with a higher priority than others. I don't agree with the priorities. Anyways, we'll catch you guys on the next one. If you watched the recap of the video and you weren't here live, we do go live Friday through Tuesday. We usually do a couple hours. Stop by, say hello, leave a comment below what you think about it, and we love you all. You guys have a good one. Take care. Later.
Bye-bye.